good questions about the market percentage of you, Mr. Michelson, and you brought them up. And because I think people need to hear these numbers. So according to your testimony, 87% of Billboard's top 40 tours in 2022 were performed at venues ticketed by Ticketmaster. Is that right?
That is correct.
And Mr.
87%. Yes, correct.
And you disagree with that, Mr. Brookto?
I don't know the numbers that he's talking about. I haven't done the analysis, so I couldn't comment.
Okay, well, we'll do that in writing, but it seems to me like that's a lot. Okay, and then secondly, another thing that you brought up, Mr. Michelson, in answer to Senator Cruz. Today, 87% of NBA teams, 87.5% of NHL teams, and 93% of NFL teams, I assume including the Vikings, have exclusive ticketing agreements with Ticketmaster. Is that right?
That is correct, and the teams are broken down in my testimony that I provided.
Okay. Dispute?
That seems inconsistent, Senator, with the information that I indicated about SeatGeek taking between 2018 and 2022, 15% of the NFL and the NBA market.
Okay, well,
I would say that I do acknowledge we absolutely have the leading share in those because there's no mystery. We have the best product. And we have a product that is particularly suited to the very complex requirements.
We were just doing facts here, so, but I understand your answer. Mr. Grossinger, do you want to reply to that?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree with the assertion around product. I think we don't know who has the best product because there's not competition. There's only one real choice that a venue can make.
Okay, and then in 2020, and the DOJ confirmed that Ticketmaster has been the, quote, largest primary ticketing service provider for major concert venues in the United States for at least 3 decades. I don't think we doubt that. Anyone? Okay. Next, Live Nation revenue grew from $5 billion to over $11.5 billion from 2010 to 2019. Is that correct, Mr. Brookholt?
I don't have the exact numbers, but that sounds right.
Okay. Then we have, I'm just going to quote from a New York Times article, 2018, that said this, and if it's wrong, you tell me, and maybe it's changed a bit because it's 2018. Ticket prices are at record highs, service fees are far from reduced, and Ticketmaster, part of the Live Nation empire, still tickets 80 of the top 100 arenas in the country. No other company has more than a handful. No competitor has risen to challenge its preeminence.
As I indicated in my comments, I believe you said that was 2018. Between 2018 and 2022, SeatGeek in particular has been very effective in winning major NFL and NBA clients.
Okay, but do you know, Mr. Grossinger, if we're like 5 off for the number of arenas or what we are
small
here?
Percentages. My data, which our team pulled, was that Ticketmaster is the primary ticketing provider for more than 80% of the NBA, NHL, and NFL teams. I would also note...
More than, say it again?
More than 80%.
80%, yeah.
And that was around the same percentage back in 2009 when we were first looking at this.
Yeah, I just want to dispel this notion, Ms. Bradish, that this is not a monopoly. And then we can go from there about solutions. So let's talk about that. Ms. Bradish, you talked about the need to update our antitrust laws. Senator Lee and I have had numerous hearings. We have made headway, as I noted, at the end of the year to focus to help our antitrust enforcers so they're not taking on the biggest companies the world has ever known with duct tape and Band-Aids when we know there are a number of people that work at these agencies are in some cases less than it was during the Nixon administration, and yet these companies have grown bigger and bigger. So I appreciate the support of the United States Senate on this front, Democrats and Republicans. Now we have to go to the next step, which is, albeit harder. We have some specific things we're all working on tech when it comes to issues like ticket prices, but the issue here is that we've seen a narrowing of our antitrust laws, and that's why I think for both discriminatory conduct and mergers, we need to step back a bit, as a number of us have on this committee, and look at some changes. They don't have to be exactly the changes each person wants, but could you talk about the importance of making it easier to enforce these antitrust laws when we have seen 75% of the industries in our nation, from cat food to caskets, see more consolidation?
Yeah, I mean, in particular with respect to vertical mergers and monopolization Section 2 cases, case law has narrowed and narrowed and narrowed the window for the enforcers to go after this kind of conduct. So anything that will open that window, that will give an opportunity for the enforcers to actually get at this conduct and this kind of merger activity is going to be what we need to restore competition.
Okay. Anyone want to add to that? Okay. Some of today's witnesses we know have raised, and we really appreciate all of you, concerns about ticketing, especially you, Mr. Lawrence, with some very practical things. It would be great if some of these kind of smaller things that are difficult for you to deal with just got resolved after this hearing. We love that. Shows we did something for the day for a change. So that's great, but I think we all know, as Ms. Bradish has been pointing out, and as Mr. Michelson and Mr. Grosinger and Mr. Nuzzo has been pointed out, these things are sometimes bigger than that. And let's get what we can right now, but there's bigger things. So one of the things we've heard complaints about is so-called drip pricing, when the consumer doesn't see the full price of the ticket, including fees up front, and has to wait until near the end of the transaction process to get the final price. This is what was just pointed out, right, Mr. Nuzzo?
Yes, correct.
Okay, very good. Should Congress mandate all-in pricing on ticketing platforms so that the full ticket price is disclosed up front?
I would stipulate that there is likely an interstate commerce reason for Congress to act in this capacity. I live in North Florida. There are a lot of people from South Georgia that come to Tallahassee occasionally when the Florida State Seminoles are having a winning season. And so from the extent and the nexus of interstate commerce, I would stipulate there's probably a window for Congress to act, even though I would also like to state on most issues, I am a states person.
I just guessed it, but okay. Anyone wants to add to that? I noticed you were consulting with, I would like to say your lawyer, but it's your bandmate, Mr. Lawrence, in answer to this question. It was very, very impressive. All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think while the spirit of the all-in pricing thing is a great idea, a concern that I have is if artists continue to have no say in the on-top portion of the fees, then while, as we talked about, I do have a say in setting the base ticket price, all of a sudden if I set a ticket price of $30, but then they're just seeing an all-in fee of $50, at least in the current system, fans know which is the base ticket price and which is the fee. So even if the drip pricing were eliminated, it would still be great.
So you want to do something up front to...
If there was something on that first screen that still said, these are the added Ticketmaster fees, so that the fans know...
That was my second question. You should be a senator, I think, here. So what you're saying is you want to differentiate on the fees, and then you also want to deal with this.
But what I really want is for artists to have a say in those fees and for them to be lower. But under the current system where we have absolutely no say or transparency in the fees, I wouldn't want to have to take any responsibility of those to our fans.
Okay. We have anyone on this? Okay. We also have heard about sellers offering to sell tickets they don't even have. That's speculative ticket sales when they don't have it. Is that something that Congress should prohibit? Mr. Michelson?
Definitely. I mean, you go online and on any high demand show, and they're selling tickets that they do not have. Absolutely, and Mr. Bergtold could certainly opine about that, but that needs to be banned somehow. I don't know whether it's Congress or by state, but something needs to be done. It's deceptive and just not right.
Okay. Then I know you, Ms. Bradish, talked about this idea of spinning off companies. We've all seen that as a remedy that would most likely be coming from the Justice Department. So all we can do here is put forward the evidence, and these are sworn testimonies back and forth under law so that the Justice Department can look at this discussion. But clearly this is something that could be looked at, because I think we can legislate on some of these things about pricing. But if you truly have a situation where you have a monopoly on this three corners of this triangle, right, which is this combo of the ticketing and the promotions, and then the arenas, or not all arenas are owned, the long contracts, long-term contracts on the arenas. That is also an issue that that creates this problem for us, where the customers are basically trapped in the middle. So anything anyone wants to comment about that and how that would aid you in competing, Mr. Grosinger? Oh, Mr. Michelson.
Thank you. Again, when I look back at history, which always guides us, I look back at the Paramount case, U.S. versus Paramount in the late 40s, where the movie studios contracted and controlled the actors. They made the films, they had the distributor, and they had the movie theaters that those played in. The government broke that up, and then it became fairer for everybody else to compete. So I think that's a solution you need to look at. I think another solution might be maybe no exclusive ticketing contracts at buildings. In Europe, in the UK, they don't have exclusive
That's what
ticketing
my
contracts.
last question was going to be, and we'll
Sorry.
count that answer. No, it's interesting. So they don't have that
Right.
in Europe. Okay. All
Another-
right. Anything more?
Oh, sorry, I was just going to mention another difference between the Europe and the U.S. market is that for Europe soccer teams, for EPL teams, they typically don't have concerts. So they're not worried about this whole concert threat that we've been talking about. And as a result, you see a markedly different market outcome where those venues actually make the ticketing decision based on the merits of the product, what's actually best for their fans and best for their business. And we've been talking about the 80% or so market share that Ticketmaster has here in the U.S. among major sports teams. That's only 20% of EPL teams, whereas SeatGeek's fortunate, due to a stronger product, to have about 10 of the 20 EPL teams there.
Okay. Senator Lee is deferring to Senator Blackburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let me just say,